G'day everyone and welcome to this week's Life on the Hulls, and as you can see behind me, foam core tender project. I've been working away on that very consistently for the last couple of days, and I'm pretty impressed with the hull shape that I've been able to derive. I've done quite a lot of research on this, and I'm hoping that it's going to be the car that we need when we're out cruising. Now, this week's episode, I'm going to start doing the rigging. A lot of the deck organisers and clutches and winches and everything are already on the boat, but there's a main deck organiser I do need to install before we can put the rigging on. That way I'll be able to hoist the guys up the mast to finalise the rigging when Tempo Spars comes down to do that job in the next couple of weeks. So pretty exciting stuff. The sails arrived last week. There's so much going on here. It's actually almost like launch week. I just don't know which way to turn because I've got so many things going on, including the removal of the second story of the factory here. It's now a completely new deck and pergola at our home, one that I have to be honest have neglected for the last 7 years as it's rotted out underneath us because I've been building the boat. Janet finally got onto me to get that done, and it looks fantastic. We're absolutely stoked with the result. Anyway, let's get into it. Alright, outdoor shower. I've got this nice little, I'm not sure what brand it is, but it's actually a pretty good quality one with a mixer, and I'm going to mount it just here on the sugar scoop here. So an easy way to mount this is just two hole saws, one there, cut out the balance, and then you've got the shape, which taking a paper template. Why don't they give you templates for these things is beyond me. Anyway, so that'll be the hole, and that's dead vertical to the step, so that'll look really nice there. Right, I think I've got it. That's going to fit in there. Now obviously because it's foam, we've got to core it with epoxy. Never ever ever not core. You must core. It's just part of the deal. Right, that's all cored. I'm going to wait for that to go off before I fit this shower outlet. Vacuum, please. Thank you. Every time I ask for something, poor Janet's down on her knees.
And I have to get back up again.
Sorry, but I do need it, and I'm going to have to climb out of this freaking hole 50 times a day just to get a vacuum. Thank you.
I just climbed up the floor 50 times a
Thank
day.
you, but it's easier for you. You can just reach up. That, by the way, is an in-joke.
Yes, it certainly
Yes,
is.
it's one of those in-jokes that couples
One
have.
of those in-jokes where Ross thinks I'm 6'4" rather than 5'6". So forgets that limbs are
You're taller than 5'6", aren't you?
I'm not 5'6", and my limbs are
Pocket rocket.
appropriate to my height.
Got a couple of missions to do today because I'm almost nearing the end of the plumbing. I need to then be able to fill the water tanks which are under the floor here. So I've got this large 38mm hose, and I was going to buy some normal water hose, but you know, at the end of the day it's only going to be a filler, and we just need something to fill the tanks with. So this stuff's to go. I'll just put this in, and essentially we can just fill the tanks quickly. Got to come down through the deck fitting here, straight through the wardrobe, down all the way through, down and into a fitting at the bottom here. Now that bottom of that cupboard is going to be congested with a lot of stuff. There's got to be a pump, a accumulator tank, and all the fittings to go into the water tank here as well. So everything happens right in the bottom of that wardrobe, and I always planned that to happen. So we'll get this this hose in, this filler hose, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, a little bit of drilling, a little bit of mess, and I've got clothes, I've got all of Janet and my clothes just everywhere. I've had to tear the place apart to actually do this one little job, but anyway. Just when you thought all the dust and the fiberglass dust and foam was over on the boat, there's plenty more of that to come. Alright, so I've got a couple of holes, and start feeding that tube in, connected to that, straight through into the water tank at the bottom. When I was planning this, one of the best things I did was made this bottom shelf removable so that I can get into the pumps and everything. The only problem with that is if I put a hose through a hole saw, the issue is going to be I'm not going to be able to remove the shelf. So what I do is I cut a U out, but I've just marked it there where I need to drill it, get the shelf out. take the shelf out and actually cut the hole there in line with the other bilge hose, and then I'll be able to simply still remove it. And then that gives me access to all this spot down in here where I can service the pump, get the pumps out, get the accumulator tank out, and it really was a sensible decision a long time ago. All right. Tell you what amazes me is how much plumbing is in a boat. More so than the electrics. It's just, and everything's massive, so you've just got to keep working with it. You just got to work with it and try to find the best, safest route where you can actually flex this stuff through, because sometimes the stuff just doesn't want to go where it wants to go. This stuff's great, and the sort of the clear blue nylon stuff has been brilliant, but for the interests of getting it through some of the compartments that I've had to do has been a little bit of a challenge. But this stuff's not too bad, I have to be honest. Following our incredibly successful day the other day, giving our boat a run. So good. Went out for about 4.5 hours, I think we went out, and for about 3 hours of that we just motored between 1,500 and 2,500 revs. We actually reached around 12 knots at 2,200 revs. That's ridiculous for a boat of this size under power. Normally that would only get us to 7 or 8 knots. So really stoked with the drivetrain that we have on here. Now, I actually almost considered turning this and just leaving it as a power cat, because it looks pretty good as a power cat, but I've already ordered the rig. 12 months ago I ordered the rig from Tempo Spars up in Sydney, and Rolly's been sitting on our rig for around about 6 months now, building it up, and every couple of weeks I've been talking to him and adding bits and pieces to it to make sure we get the rig that we want. That means basically the electrics. He's designed the rigging itself, but I need to put in some clutches, deck organisers and some pulley blocks to make sure that we can actually pull the guys up the rig to do the rigging, to get the pre-bend and the rake and everything correct. And obviously there's a lot more to do, but what I've been doing this morning is working on putting on some clutches, just getting them in position and testing the running rigging to see if it's actually going to work the way I wanted it, and I think it is. And what I now need to do is put in this huge G10 block up in here, but unfortunately I can't sit there because that's going to knock people on the head, particularly there's going to be bolts sticking out of it, so I need to recess it back in to the foam, which is about 25 millimeters thick here, and that'll give me enough room to be able to then put a small liner over, which will sit flush with the height of this, so it'll sort of resemble this idea where it's recessed in, and Janet will do some sort of a padded liner like this to just fit over the top of it, so we can always have access to the nuts and bolts, bringing that deck organizer down through the roof. So we're going to have 8 pulley blocks directly above our 60mm one, so they've got a huge MWL, maximum working load, and that is going to sit essentially there and up underneath, obviously on the roof, and by fitting it there it means that I'll be able to keep all of the 8 lines that are going to come off the mast directly over to here, and then they'll scoot across to our helm station over the top here. Okay, so this is going to be a substantial panel because I need to lay about 7 or 8 layers of glass in there and then have a large block like this, a reinforcer. I may even use this G10 one because it's pretty good. It's going to cop a lot of load because basically all of the lines off the mast, and they basically come straight off the mast and then back across to the helm. So this guy here, in combination with the turning blocks on the collar on the mast, are taking a hell of a lot of force. And this needs to be as strong as I can intentionally make it. Scallop it back basically like I've done over here to make sure that I get a really strong tie-in with the roof. But we've already got a pretty substantial layup on the ceiling, but I do need to make it even more. So I've got to burrow all the foam out of here, sand it down, and get it ready. I wasn't really sure of what I was going to have to do here, but I'm pretty happy with what I've got to do now. Okay, I've adjusted my design here. I've decided to go for a piece basically just 7 centimeters larger than the original one, just to make it a little bit smaller, because that was going to be a massive square that would have just taken over the whole roof, and you know, there's not really any need for it. I'm basically going to cut a 45-degree bevel here and then we'll re-glass all of this from back here all the way along to about here, and then I'll have to retexture it all. But I'm going to lay a heap of carbon in here, and obviously some unidirectionals in this area here, just to get it all nice and strong. And then we'll put a nice liner up that'll only be this big. It'll actually be on an angle. It's going to look a little bit unusual, but I've got to have it. You know, it's just one of those things. You can't have these turning blocks without ultimate support, and I'm not that worried about it because it will be flush. Oh, that was just brutal having to do that, and my beautiful white roof. But anyway, I've got to chisel this whole panel off, and then you know, obviously get into the solid glass underneath. No point in leaving the core there. It simply isn't strong enough for the loads that I'm going to give it. And obviously I want this whole thing to be flush across here, or as flush as possible, so that we don't have any impact on heads, because it is a reasonably low roof once you get in over this table here. So anyway, I'll get it chiseled off, and then I can see what I'm dealing with. I've actually taken the foam off with the bloody glass, which proves that laminating is sound. I mean, this is top quality laminating, nothing, absolutely no problem there. That's a pleasing thing to see, that, because it's the first time I've really seen a large patch of the boat exposed like this. Fortunately, I haven't had to do too much of it, but getting this out is going to be relatively simple, and then I can basically get on with the clean up and get the deck organiser fitted and rigging next Thursday. It's actually the first real time I've made a huge mess in the boat since we left the hard, so that's not too bad. It actually looks pretty neat now. I mean, it's a very odd shape to have in a roof, but I really don't have a choice. I could have made a big square, but you know, it would have been tons of work, and you know, I could always do that later if I decide I don't like it. The rigging's going on next Thursday. I've just made a booking with Shoalhaven Council here for the wharf. You have to book it to do any work for 24 hours, and as we're getting the mast stepped, should only take 3 or 4 hours to get that done. And I've also booked a gentleman with a high ab on the back of a truck, so we can lift the mast up and get it on. We won't need a crane because we're already about 10 foot above the boat itself. Anyway, we'll work on that next week. That's all booked, and that is a week away, so I've got another big week on. Okay, from the factory back to the boat. Every second day I try to do in the factory. Actually, the last week I've spent 5 days here, 2 days in the factory, and those 5 days have been pretty productive. But one of the things I've just got to get done now is get a few of our deck organisers in. I've already got the mast base fitted. I've got the clutches almost fitted. I've got the winches fitted. So we need to be able to hoist the guys up the mast, obviously, for the rigging. So these parts now have to be installed in the boat. So this is essentially going to go here, a serious piece of stainless, and it also has to be laminated in. But before I do that, I'm actually going to laminate this solid glass vinyl ester hull section that I have. It will be glued in place with epoxy and then laminated in and tabbed to the side here to make it all very, very strong before I actually mount that stainless plate. Now I'm going to drill some small holes into 3 parts of this so that I can actually get it perfectly positioned up there. I'll put the screws up into the roof, and then I'll go up the top and I'll screw back down into it so that I can then laminate it. Got our locator holes here. Pull these ones out. And that's good, there's no squeeze out, which is sort of what I was aiming for. So nice to have a day in the factory. I've been working down on the boat for probably 7 days straight, and we had our big test trial the other day, our sea trial, our first time out in the ocean, and absolutely blown away how good it was. The boat just screams along, and that's only under motor. So in about 6 days we're getting our rigging put on, so working away on getting some deck organisers in, some turning blocks, and particularly our clutches. I'm here working on the reinforcement required for this 460mm pulley deck organiser, and what's going to happen is this green G10 block is going to sit up on the top of the deck as the beginning of the reinforcement, and I have the cutout here of our roof section. This actually was up in the ceiling, so that is the size that I'm working with. This piece of laminate, which is actually the hull laminate. It's the test piece I made for AMSA to do a test on our hull. We actually decided to not go through with all of that survey process because the boat was just going to be ours. We're never going to charter it. But we also decided that the cost simply wasn't going to pay off in the long run. The economies of it just didn't stack up. The amount of money it was costing us, nearly $5,000 for every inspection, was just such a joke, and half of the time the guys didn't even know what they were looking at. So to be honest, I knew what I was looking at, and I know that I've built this boat way above what that standard is, and could potentially put it in survey later on, but I'm not going to bother. So this is the original hull laminate, right in the bottom of the boat. It's a serious laminate. There's like 12 layers of quadraxial and double bias in here, forming the solid glass section of our boat. That is now going to be the reinforcement up in the roof, the original one. So this deck organiser will come through that. So what I've chosen to do is put this into the roof section. That'll be epoxied in place, and then I'll laminate over the top and up and over to laminate that into the actual roof section. Once all that's done, we'll then put this, I'll polish this up, polished stainless plate in place, and obviously all the bolts are going to come through that, and ultimately we're going to have an incredibly strong reinforcement for our deck organiser up on the top, which is going to have most of the load of all of the rigging coming down on it from the mast. Well, that's that job done. I don't know, I think I enjoy the fabricating more than actually than the sailing. I do love doing stuff like this. It just gives me such a great sense of achievement being able to fabricate something in-house and be able to conceptualize something in the morning. By the afternoon it's done. That's the joy, and the whole thing in this boat build has been that, and the work that I do here has just been very, very rewarding. And normally I'd have to get to a fabricator, find a base plate manufacturer or someone to do all this work, and it's simply a matter of buy a grinder and get some polishing gear and you're ready to go. Okay, just had a big clean up, and I've just green trimmed the edge of this. Now this is basically consolidated down now and tied in. I've actually done 4 layers on here, which didn't even need it, and then probably another 8 subsequent layers on here to laminate it into the foam. Now the last thing I need to do is laminate from here to the edge. I'm actually going to increase this margin all the way around so I get a really nice textured edge, which will blend in with the rest of the boat and make this thing hide once we put in the plush liner that's going to go on top. So the stainless steel will go, then there'll be 4 or 5 nuts holding that organiser in place. And yeah, that's pretty good. I only did that an hour ago, and that's how hot it is today. I mean, we have basically got that set and sanded within an hour. That is the beauty of working with vinyl ester. You can sort of work with it and it's bang, it's off almost as quick as you lay it. As of today, we are moving into a very different phase in the life of Synergy. Our rigging is going on tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow night I'll be moving the boat up to the wharf. Thursday morning early, Rolly will be coming down from Tempo Spas in Sydney and rigging our boat with our mast that's been sitting sort of half built for about the last 6 months. So pretty happy to have that all happening now. I've still got a lot of things to do. To get the boat rigged is the final component of the really major stuff that's going to happen to this boat, and then we can start to use the boat as we were intended right from day one. Now the thing is, we've taken it for a great drive out on the bay, but we really haven't put this boat through sea trials, and those sea trials are going to be involved, probably a month or so of just sailing it on Jervis Bay. Once the sails go on, I'll be able to then get into the to the testing the rigging, testing the function of the helm station and everything, and ironing out a few problems that we got. But very exciting stuff. I'm so excited. This has been a long time coming, and this has been held up by our engine problem that has been sort of ongoing for the last 4 or 5 months. I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for a solution. We finally got a solution with Paul from Bateman's Bay Marine, who was just superb. So let's get the rigging on. I'll give Janet a call. She'll be here at lunchtime to help me to mount these organisers. Anyone that's ever put one of these large deck organisers together, and in fact 2, will understand what a pain in the backside they are. Nothing is machined together. It's all sort of separate. So when you put it together, if you have to pull it apart, you invariably drop bits, and all these little bushes here have actually been falling all over the place. You've got to be ultra careful you don't lose them. So what I've got is I've got my riser, my G10 riser, which I've had to basically burrow out the holes because I've got to get these dead right and ready for install. And of course I'm coming through the roof, so I do need to match it to the base plate that I've actually made for the roof itself. So this has got to go in. It's a double stacker. We've already sort of cleared the engineering on it, so that's no problem. Because we've gone to the 60mm, we've got a larger load capacity. And quite frankly now, once I put this together, all I have to do is put some Sikaflex on the bottom. I'm going to use some Tef gel, this R28 anti-seize, and essentially going to use that in between the aluminium and the stainless bushes and the screws as well, and the bolts on the top with a washer, just to avoid any sort of electrolytic sort of transfer. And obviously I'm going to have to make sure that they're well lubricated at all times with this anti-seize. We'll get onto that now. Alright, so I've got Tef gel in between the washer and the anodized aluminium, Tef gel between the bearing or the bush and the sheave, and essentially now what's going to happen is we're going to sit it up on the roof. We're going to Sikaflex that base down, push it through. We also need to make sure we've got plenty of Sikaflex on here. So I've got my draft sausage here to catch any bits and pieces that might decide to slide down the deck and end up in the sea. I've got my base plate here. This is actually a G10 base plate that I've made here that's going to sit underneath these organisers and just act as a bit of a riser so that I can have less friction as it goes across the deck here. I've also made a stainless rub rail here that's going to mount here somewhere, and all the lines will sort of traverse this into our low friction point there, into our clutches and down to the winch. But for now I've got to get this all drilled out, measured with the vernier calipers, and work out what length of bolt. I'm fearing it's going to be about 140mm bolt by the time I get through all these reinforcements. Alright, so 100mm bolts should just about do it, and that's going to look pretty nice sitting there. Obviously nice and solid and well supported and well backed up. This thing's just very hard to handle because I don't want it to fall apart when I'm carrying it.
Well, wait, can't we carry that camera?
No, I've got it out over the water. Shit, risky business. This, alright, so here's our position here. So I've got our holes here. I'm just going to put a heap on the top of the hole though. There's like days of work just in this thing alone. This has been 3 or 4 days of mucking around to get it to this stage, and it all comes down to a 2-minute install. And because if you pull it apart, the whole bloody thing falls apart. How'd that go?
Yeah, well, they're not dripping yet.
Yeah, that looks pretty flash. Wow, that's a serious piece of deck hardware there. That's about $1,000 there, at least. All happening here. There's an Allen key somewhere over there. That's the Allen key over there. Of course, we've gone with button heads. They're Allen keys, which is the stupidest tool that was ever designed. It's the best I've got. So you just have to hold it. Yeah, that's okay. You just got to hold the blue thing. Just put your hand over all the bolts. You got it? Hold them all down. Oh, perfect. It's taken all day to friggin' do that. Get that right. So we're going to start up here, start on this single one and work our way forward, and then we'll work our way back and just gradually tighten it all so we're not, just need to make sure our sheaves still operate. So those sheaves still need to turn. I can't tighten it so much that they don't spin.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and you'll probably get a bit of squeeze out around the back, the base of that black riser.
Yeah, okay.
All right?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. All right, so this is looking good now. And it's not going anywhere. Awesome. What are you doing down there?
Waiting for instructions.
Waiting for me. Righto, we can have a break now. Might be almost time for a swim.
Swim, I reckon. It's so good. How can this be bloody water? Not complaining, but